Hola, hola a todas y a todos. Bienvenidos.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final session of the event. Welcome everyone who has joined us, and we invite everyone still outside to come join us for the closing remarks, so we can wrap up the session after such rich days and discussions of the many topics addressed in Punta del Este in Uruguay. This is the closing plenary session, and the idea is to reflect based on a specific statement, making information as a common good a reality. Let me start by greeting and to begin the closing remarks. Let me greet Pablo da Silveira, the Minister of Education and Culture of Uruguay. Welcome, Pablo. And I also want to greet Tofik Gelassi, Director General of UNESCO. Thank you for being here as well. And today we will hear from other events like this. We must mention the Windhoek Plus 30 Declaration of Information as a Common Good, as we know, has been signed by 230 UNESCO member states. The declaration was produced during this same conference last year that was hosted by Namibia, and we want to greet Namibia as the conference was hosted in this country last year, and we want to greet Rosalia Nuyoma, the Namibia representative. Greetings from Uruguay. Thank you for being online and for following the event so closely. We will also hear from participants very short remarks. There are many of us here in the panel, so ideally we will speak for three minutes each. There are many perspectives, many views addressed in our sessions, in our roundtables. Of course, privacy was one of these issues addressed, the protection of personal data. And this is why it is important to hear the closing remarks or final reflections or main takeaways of Dr. Anna Bryan, UN Special Rapporteur on the right to privacy. You have the floor. Is this on? Yes, it is. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting us. It has been a great opportunity to focus on privacy from the perspective of journalism, and to look at journalism from the perspective of privacy. I do have some remarks and observations. In the first place, human rights, fundamental human rights like the right to privacy and access to information, once enshrined, needs to have the means for its execution. It's not just about a statement, but rather go beyond the statement, and we need the resources to be able to actually fulfill them. That's why events like this, in addition to reporting violations of human rights, the freedom of expression, the freedom of opinion, and the freedom to access information, the freedom not to receive fake news, or the right to privacy, sometimes the execution of human rights or fundament of human rights, as any of the ones I've mentioned, might fail. It is important, therefore, that we consider that essential fundamental human rights cannot just exist online in the virtual realm. Security of journalists, the security of their family, of their belongings, and the need to have financial support and make media viable are very important, as they could become indirect ways to hinder human rights. So therefore, we need to continue fighting, all of us as rapporteurs. The right to free and independent information from the perspective of journalism, it is also one of the priorities of our mandate. Journalism is now fulfilled using information technologies that we did not know only a few years ago. Information has never been so handy for journalists, and at the same time, research has become very quickly disseminated. Now, information and communication technologies makes a lot of digital information available that is fundamentally controlled by large corporations or the states. Data have become resources for the production of news and have become more valuable in the terms of the social value and financial value. We are now facing a technological revolution that has a big impact in our day-to-day lives and in our professional lives. It has an impact in our houses, in our kitchens, with the Internet of Things, our vehicles, our careers, how easy or not it is to access information, how we do business. It has an impact on every aspect of our lives. The use of the Internet, the widespread use of the Internet and other devices that have become milestones in the development of technology, and the widespread use of cell phones, social media, all of these are important aspects in social and professional development for people, especially when we speak about other disruptive elements. For example, 3D printing, augmented reality, machine learning, robotics, nanotechnology, AI. It is very hard to put a stop to this revolution that we are undergoing. But we need to understand the risks, and we must face them. And we should always remember that whenever we use cutting-edge technology, disruptive technology like AI, of which we have heard so much in these last couple of days, we need to understand that technological development should always be at the service of people. It should never be the other way around. Journalism is becoming increasingly important in defending democratic values, especially in the times where fake news have the potential to create a high degree of disinformation and are a threat to humanity. In this era, journalists are a vital actor. The pandemic was swamped with fake news, and the severe conflicts that humankind are now facing, exposing journalists to crimes and attacks is crucial. Yamal Kayohi in 2018, the case of Samuel Paty in 2020, Charlie Hebdo in 2015. And we also learn about the fact that 24 journalists were arrested on average every month in 2021, 4 murdered. And tools like Pegasus and Kandiru that are very intrusive and violate human rights, leading to some journalists to self-censor. Tools to fight against all of this are available, but we must use and implement them. Public and private stakeholders must be involved. Therefore, and for many other reasons that we continue to list, we understand that this is a timely opportunity to celebrate the courage and determination of journalists and to promote the free exercise of the right to information, to access information, and to fight misinformation as a way protecting human rights and generate, based on mutual respect, thriving environments that are based on trust. Thank you. Thank you, Ana Brian, for your message. And let's welcome Blanca Ibarra Cadena from Mexico, the president of INAI, the Transparency Personal Data Protection Institute, and the president of the General Global Assembly. Blanca is here. Welcome. Thank you, Carmen. A few days ago, during the opening remarks of this meeting, the Director General of UNESCO said that disinformation and fake news threaten democracy, and to fight them, we must demand large digital platforms to be more transparent. I would also like to add that we must demand greater commitment to privacy. We are faced with a new reality, new technologies, so we need to change our discourse. We need to change our social dialogue, transparency and information to avoid disinformation and to ensure privacy of people. There are two sides of the same coin that we must address, and this will be contingent to the feasibility and viability of our democracies. The observations that we have heard are very timely and very relevant. We identify more threats and risks to the exercise of freedom of press in different regions around the world. We need to protect the rights of journalists and therefore freedom of press, and that entails great challenges, and they are very closely linked with the feasibility and viability of democracy and the protection and respect of people's rights around the world. Freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and we're convinced about it, is a barometer that will allow us to learn about the essence and particularly the foundations on which governments can act, threats on journalism and citizens, while exercising their fundamental rights. It is not just limited to censorship or media exclusion to spread this information. The attacks on the right to privacy, physical or digital surveillance, tapping communications, intrusion of the state and factual powers in the household and families will prevent a person to develop freely in their private sphere, and it can deter them from exercising and fulfilling their activities freely. We are facing great challenges. That's why this conference is very timely. Local and global risks for freedom of speech have increased, and they are coming not only from the public but the private arena as well. The most painful among the different forms is without question murders. Nowadays, we are missing over 800 journalists. We are missing their voices. We are missing their stories that remain unfinished. We are missing their rights, their truths that we were never able to learn. Silencing the voices of journalists means that we're silencing the voice of society. That's why I want to say here today, we won't allow the murder of one additional journalist around the world. Thank you, Blanca Lilia Ibarra. Jorge Canahuati is here. Jorge is the president of SIP, the Inter-American Press Association. Jorge, you have the floor. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this distinguished panel. After attending different panels, I could say that the conclusions of this summit are redundant with the expressions UNESCO highlighted in the renewed Window Plus 30 declaration. I don't want to disregard any particular topics, but I want to stress two aspects that are needed for the media and journalists to freely fulfill their profession and to use journalism as a public good, as it's been mentioned before in this panel. They need necessary support for the financial viability of their job. Changes in technology and the increase in media availability have led to economic disparities as a result of the use of global platforms, and therefore the financial viability of media is under stress. We recognize our own flaws, the media flaws, with delayed processes in digital transformation. However, the highest problem that we are facing is migration of income, changes in advertising income that were absorbed by the large digital platforms. We need This summit needs to hear our claims and our reports from the press associations around the world and in the Americas, demanding for public policies that make platforms pay media and journalists a fair distribution, a reasonable distribution for the intellectual right of the journalistic content that platforms distribute and monetize as part of their advertising strategies, as the direct and indirect benefits that they obtain from this content.
We need that the inequalities and asymmetries between platforms and media become more balanced. Media request consistent global approaches to make effective a right based in intellectual property and in the standards for defense of competition. It is essential that we prevent abusive practices in digital advertising where platforms are arbiters and main players. Apart from the support to initiatives on remuneration for contents, for those producing and creating them, governments and multilateral agencies must adopt public policies guaranteeing the survival of journalism. These programs may be soft credits, opening of new media support, fiscal direct incentives for production of contents for donors, audiences, and the announcers. The essential prerequisite for any support program for the media should be framed in transparent measures, non-discriminatory and inclusive, and mainly not affecting the editorial autonomy of the media. Last, we need to promote a healthy and balanced media ecosystem where algorithms don't end deciding what information is relevant for somebody or a society, and where disinformation is combated with quality journalism. So we need sustainable media receiving the value generated to benefit the community. Thank you. Thank you, Jorge Canahuati, for your message. Canada co-chairs the coalition of member states of the coalition for media outlets, and here in Punta del Este we have the representative of global affairs in Canada, Jeffrey Marder, and I thank him very much as executive director of human rights and indigenous matters to express his message. Welcome, Jeffrey. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you for this invitation. I'm going to speak in English.
Canada has been a co-chair of the Media Freedom Coalition since its founding. And since the beginning, we recognize that as governments and as an international community, we must take a multifaceted approach to defending media freedom worldwide. That's why one of the strengths of the Media Freedom Coalition is that it is a multi-stakeholder endeavor. We have a civil society consultative network that informs the work of the group, as well as a high-level panel of legal experts. UNESCO is also a key partner, and we've been proud to co-found and support the Global Media Defense Fund that UNESCO manages from the start. And I'd have to say that UNESCO has done a phenomenal job in administering this fund and ensuring that it's responsive to the needs of journalists and the media. As a member of the steering committee, we work with UNESCO and other committee members to ensure that the fund is inclusive and diverse in receiving proposals from underrepresented regions, and that each project contains gender-responsive considerations and measures. Building on success to date, we strongly encourage organizations to consider submitting a proposal for the upcoming third call for partnerships. As co-chair of the Media Freedom Coalition, Canada works with our cross-regional members to advocate for the safety of journalists and media workers, both through public statements and targeted quiet diplomacy through our diplomatic networks on the ground. Both approaches are important for making an impact on this issue. Public statements that reiterate that violations of media freedom are unacceptable to the international community and shine a spotlight on media freedom situations of concern. Quiet diplomacy allows us to sometimes deliver very frank messages to specific countries. In line with the theme of this year's conference, in June, Canada and the Netherlands will co-lead a Human Rights Council resolution focused on the importance of digital literacy and connectivity for the right to freedom of opinion and expression. We hope that this resolution will address a normative gap in international human rights on this critical issue. How can information be a public good if the public is not able to connect to and navigate the increasingly complex global information ecosystem? To do this, the public needs a base level of digital literacy and internet access to understand the digital technologies and the ways in which they impact an individual's ability to access information. We're encouraged by having a cross-regional core group for this resolution, including our partners Brazil, Fiji, Namibia, and Sweden. Defending media freedom continues to be a work in progress. Canada and the other 51 members of the Media Freedom Coalition remain committed to working towards the realization of information as a public good. Thank you.
Yes, gracias, Jeffrey. Gracias por su mensaje. Y está aquí también Pablo Medina. Pablo.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for your message. Pablo Jiménez is Vice Chair of the Communications Program of UNESCO. The floor is yours. Thank you, Carmen. Good morning, everybody. I want to bring greetings to the Vice Chair, Beatriz Argimon Seguera, who I believe is among us, the Minister of Education and Culture, Pablo da Silveira, and the Assistant of the Director General for the Communication and Information Sector, Mr. Tufik Jalasi, who is also with us, distinguished colleagues, journalists, friends, delegates, friends all. As you may be aware, the International Program for the Development of Communication includes a committee, an intergovernmental committee of 39 countries, encompassing the 193 member states of UNESCO. And in this committee, we conduct the study of projects related with the drive for media communication, particularly in developed countries. And we do this with this Intergovernmental Council that indeed is a single forum within the multilateral system that encompasses this matter in a specific and concrete manner. If you allow, I would like to highlight among the variety of panels we had in this global forum 3 items, highlighting among the plethora of important subjects. I would highlight 3 as the most important as considered by this Intergovernmental Council and Committee. First, debates conducted in relation to the model legal protocol to ensure journalist safety. We had a panel on Monday where we heard a draft law for safety of journalists and media workers. Second, the Council will receive a report on debates regarding the viability of media outlets, including outcomes of the session hosted regarding the transparency of the internet and feasibility of the media outlets. And third, and this is included in our agenda, and this will be seen together with the Bureau, an examination of draft principles for effective assistance to the media outlets. I conclude, distinguished members, thanking on behalf of our Center in Dominican Republic as Vice Chair of the Regional Program, to thank and greet once again the distinguished Vice President of Uruguay, Mrs. Beatriz Argimon, who is finally with us, the Minister of Education and Culture, Pablo da Silveira, and Mr. Tufik Jalasi, Muchas gracias.
Gracias,
Thank you, distinguished Carmen, for handing me the floor, and thank all of you for your attention. Thank you, Pablo. Yes, we welcome the Vice President, Beatriz Gargimon. We'll hear her message. Welcome to the room. I have already mentioned Pablo Silveira and Tofik Jelassi. We'll soon hear them. Let's continue then with our panel. With us, we have Sheetal Vyas, Executive Director, founder of the International Fund for Media of Public Interest. So welcome, the floor is yours. Gracias, Carmen.
Here to speak today. So, as we have heard reiterated so many times here in Uruguay, there is a clear market failure in the media sector. Journalism is struggling to fund itself, and the pandemic has just made this worse. The United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, called this a media extinction event last year in the run-up to World Press Freedom Day. It is clear that we cannot respond to the media viability crisis without more resources. In the words of our co-chairs, Maria Ressa and Mark Thompson, it will take more than speeches or indeed Nobel Prizes to save independent journalism. It will take a plan and a new, more equal partnership between practitioners and their supporters in the prosperous North. It will take a renewed sense of mission, and it will also take hard cash. The Win+30 Declaration called for a new multilateral mechanism. I've heard that same call for more resources and the creation of a global fund to support media a number of times in the last 3 days. These funds will complement the existing funds that exist, the UNESCO Defence Fund that exists. And the International Fund for Public Interest Media is just that fund. Our fund is designed as a new multilateral mechanism to provide a clear, legitimate, independent, efficient, and large-scale response to the economic challenges confronting independent media by mobilizing additional resources at unprecedented levels, specifically in low and middle-income countries. So I was asked today to tell you all what the International Fund for Public Interest Media will be committing to doing. Well, we'll commit to do 3 things. The first is that we commit to do everything we can to mobilize new funding in addition to the $34 million that we've already raised in catalytic seed funding. We will raise more money from governments, we'll raise more money from philanthropies, and we'll raise more money from corporates. I want to reiterate that this is new additional funding for the sector that is so desperately needed. Second, we commit to take action now to support media organizations that need it most. As I announced in our panel on Monday, we launched our first open call for proposals to provide vital support for independent media institutions who might not survive. And we've launched that call in 17 countries, so please go to our website for more information. And finally, in addition to supporting media organizations survive, we commit to working at the national and ecosystem level to chart a path for media viability. For example, supporting multi-stakeholder initiatives like those that we're about to hear in Sierra Leone, which I've been inspired about hearing, a really brilliant example of walking the talk. So please, I urge you all to join us in communicating a clear message to the international community. This crisis cannot be resolved without more resources. Thank you.
Gracias, Sheetal.
Thank you, Sheetal, for your message. Very precise. And with us in this closing ceremony, the Minister of Communication and Information of Sierra Leone, as Sheetal mentioned. Thank you, Mohamed Rahman Saral, who's with us right now. Let us hear your message. Muchas gracias.
Let me extend deepest appreciation to the Uruguayan authorities and UNESCO for the warm welcome extended to my delegation since our arrival here at the start of this conference. Thank you very much. Sierra Leone notes that a threat to journalists and journalism anywhere is a threat to journalists and democracy everywhere. It is in that context that our government has taken the unprecedented steps in West Africa, for the most part, to repeal all restrictive laws that prove binding constraints in the work of journalists and in strengthening and deepening democracy. As a result of those bold, audacious steps, this year's Press Freedom Index ranked Sierra Leone 46 out of 180 countries surveyed. It is, for us, a jump of 29 places over the 2021 rating. This will not go to our head. For us, we see this as a call to more action. We also note that repealing restrictive laws are not enough. We need to now build a resilient ecosystem that brings multi-stakeholders on board. We have already started that experiment. In the run-up to the conference, the current conference, we had held multi-stakeholder dialogues with the media, various players in the media ecosystem, and non-state actors. That culminated in a 2-day workshop to discuss media viability and sustainability. The product of that 2-day workshop is with us now, which has put together a clear roadmap, verifiable roadmap, that will guide our journey to building a resilient, viable media that will stand the test of times. As other speakers before me have mentioned, these are very challenging times for the world, not made easy by COVID and now what's happening in Ukraine. So the country needs all of the support that we could muster. One, to build the multi-stakeholder infrastructure to manage and midwife this process. Of course, that brings us to the very good news of the unveiling yesterday of the International Fund for Public Interest Media, where Sierra Leone is among 17 countries that has now been requested to send in proposals. We will encourage the media fraternity in Sierra Leone to take advantage of this opportunity to stay afloat and to continue to hold government to account in a professional manner so that the values of democracy, good governance, press freedom that Sierra Leone stands for will be further entrenched. I am very heartened by the call yesterday from UNESCO asking member countries to develop national roadmaps. We're already ahead of the curve. We will continue to make progress, and in that regard, we will, at the appropriate moments, be willing and ready to share experiences with other countries. In all of this, like the executive director for the International Fund for Public Interest Media just noted, this is going to require both technical and financial support, particularly the countries that have been hardest hit by COVID and goings on around the world. On that note, I thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Gracias, Ministro. Gracias, Mohamed.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mohamed. Rahman, greetings to Sierra Leone and congratulations. We have a quick video. From the Commissioner of European Union for the International Association. We will watch a video from Utah Upilani, who is part of the figures that are participating in our closing remarks. So you have the floor.
Press Day, our hearts and minds are with journalists, risking and losing their lives in Ukraine. We have redirected funds to support journalists and media outlets in Ukraine. EU protects journalists media freedom and pluralism. We fight disinformation, which undermines our democratic model. In the coming years, we will dedicate 200 million euros for safeguarding fundamental freedoms worldwide, including independent journalism. This includes providing reliable information to the public, as well as opportunities and challenges that come with digital and new technologies. The EU's Media Freedom Act will later this year address online abuse, particularly of women journalists. Friends, press freedom is a cornerstone of democracy. The EU's commitment to it goes right to the heart of who we are and the values we hold so dear.
Gracias.
On this year's World Press Day, our hearts...
Bueno, nos quedamos aquí con la duda de si seguía el mensaje, pero bueno, creo que cerró finalmente el mensaje de...
So you tell the Commissioner of the European Union for the international collaboration. So that brings us to the end of our forum, of our session, and we will welcome Zuliana Lainez. She is the Vice President of the International Journalists Association. So Juliana, you have the closing remarks. Thank you, Carmen. It is an honor for me to be able to join this panel representing the over 600,000 journalists represented under the International Journalists Association. 1 year ago, we adopted the WINHAG Plus 30 declaration acknowledging information as a public good, not as a public service. And this is a position that the Federation adopted and we support. But we always stress and we always wonder in the face of these statements who produces and who disseminates information. Those who do are workers, male and female journalists, and we cannot forget journalists when we host these discussions, when we adopt strategies in the face of certain situations, and we need to engage them and we need to get them involved in premises that are as solid as this. And something that we cannot disregard are the working conditions where these workers and journalists have to produce and disseminate information, job insecurity and precarization. And I know that here in this room we have organizations that have to deal with the murder of a colleague in Latin America or in other continent every day, and we have to fight against the digital siege that we have discussed in this event. And we are well aware, and it's not just our perception, but it is very well documented that job insecurity is another component for the security of journalists. Working conditions for journalists don't just affect their vulnerability when it comes to danger, but also on something that is core to us. It is the quality of journalism. If we speak about job insecurity and how it impacts journalists, and we think that information is a public good, we will see that we cannot look at that puzzle without considering the working conditions as a fundamental piece. We do not want to raise what someone might think discussions more appropriate for the ILO. Job insecurity entails security. It is associated with the quality of journalism, the quality of information, and it is intrinsically linked to information as a public good. So we congratulate the fact that we are here. We congratulate the fact that we are able to have these discussions, and again we want to reinforce our commitment as male and female journalists to freedom of expression, press, and the right to information. And finally, let me say something. I think it is a very, very clear image. The fact that we cannot have freedom of press if journalists in the fulfillment of the job are surrounded by corruption, poverty, or fear. Thank you for your message. Thank you, Zuliana, for your message. Such an important message to wrap up the panel. And I invite the audience and the panelists to watch a video message showing one of the most important moments of this event, when the World Award, the Guillermo Cano World Award on Press Freedom is awarded in honor of a leading journalist, a legendary journalist, Mr. Guillermo Cano. As we all know, he was murdered in the exercise of his profession in Colombia, and he was murdered by Pablo Escobar Gaviria and the Medellin cartel. So in memory of Guillermo Cano, in memory of the journalists that have been killed, in memory of those who have lost their lives in informing others and giving a message of solidarity for those who are persecuted, we are opening the floor. We want to bring back this key moment of the event when we handed the Belarus Press Association a recognition through Andrés Bastunet, who is the president of the Belarus Press Association, where he is reminding us that in some places, like in Belarus, although they are not recognized legally as an association, but thanks to their determination and thanks to their hard work, they can continue to move forward. So this recognition to our colleagues in Belarus has a very deep meaning. Our congratulations to them, and let's relive this moment of the event.
André Bastunets.
André Bastunets. A round of applause for him, representative and chair of the Belarus Society of Journalists. Best greetings. So we're entering this part where we can visualize what has occurred here in a summary video.
Una vez más, darles la bienvenida a Punta del Este y a Uruguay.
Me interesa mucho que sepan que en este país la libertad de prensa nació antes que constitucionalmente lo hiciera el país.
la libertad de prensa exige periodistas independientes, trabajando para medios independientes, capaces de autosustentarse para trabajar en libertad.
Nunca la información ha sido tan accesible, nunca las investigaciones de los periodistas han tenido tanto alcance, pero quizás nunca antes habían sido tan encubiertas o incluso ahogadas.
Yo creo que la capacidad que tengamos de educar a los ciudadanos para cómo, qué y hasta dónde involucrarse en determinadas noticias es fundamental. Porque lo otro es tapar el sol con un dedo.
Because they're young and they understand and they grew up in the digital age, they can help us understand the complexities a lot more.
Hay un desafío enorme en el mundo respecto a la violencia digital. Particularmente hay una preocupación por la violencia contra las mujeres.
A final de cuentas, lo que buscamos los periodistas es contribuir mediante nuestro trabajo y nuestras investigaciones a mejorar las sociedades en las que estamos trabajando y para las que trabajamos, para los ciudadanos.